Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. ISKCON BBD founder Acharya, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai, Mayapur Dham ki jai, Yamuna Maya ki jai, Ganga Maya ki jai, Bhakti ki jai, Tulasi Maharani ki jai, Amadeta Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
To the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. Hare Hare Bol.
Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi. Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shanivadi Paschada Deshatarane. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, The Creation, Chapter 19, the final chapter of the first canto, Text 3. Adyeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kula Nalome Tehatva Bhadrasya Punar Name Bhut Papiyasi Dir Dvijadeva Gobhya Adyeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kula Nalome Tehatva Bhadrasya Punar Name Bhut Papiyasi Dir Dvijadeva Gobhya Adyeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kula Nalome Tehatva Bhadrasya Punar Name Bhut Papiyasi Dir Dvijadeva Gobhya. Everyone chant, please.
Hare Krishna. Adhyeva Rajyam Balamradha Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kula Nalome Dahatva Bhadrasya Punarname Bhut Papi Yasidhir Dvijadeva Gobhya.
Adyeva Rajyam Balamruddha Prakopita Brahma Kulanalome Dhahatve Abharasya Punarname Bhut Papi Yasidhir Dvijadeva Gopha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Adeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kula Nalome Dahatva Abhadrasya Punarname Bhut Papiya Shidhir Deva Deja Govyaha.
Hare Krishna. Atyeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kulanalome Dahatva Abhadrasya Punarname Aput Papi Yasidir Dvijadeva Gobhya. Hare Krishna.
Atyeva Rajyam Balamrita Kosham Prakopita Brahma Kulana Lome Dahatva Abhadrasya Punarname Bhut Papi Yasidhir Dvijadeva Gobhya.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Adya, this day. Eva, on the very. Rajyam, kingdom. Balam ridha, strength and riches. Kosham, treasury. Prakopita, ignited by. Brahmakula, by the Brahmana community. Anala, fire. Me dahatu, let it burn me. Abhadrasya, inauspiciousness. Puna, again. Na, not. May, unto me. Abhut, may occur. Papiyasi, sinful. D, intelligence. Dvija, brahmanas. Deva, the Supreme Lord. Gobya, and the cows. Translation. I am uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Progressive human civilization is based on Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and protection of cows. All economic development of the state by trade, commerce, agriculture, and industries must be fully utilized in relation to the above principles. Otherwise, all so-called economic development becomes a source of degradation. Cow protection means feeding the Brahminical culture, which leads towards God consciousness, and thus perfection of human civilization is achieved. The age of Kali aims at killing the higher principles of life. And although Maharaj Parikshit strongly resisted the domination of the personality of Kali within the world, the influence of the age of Kali came at an opportune moment, and even a strong king like Maharaj Parikshit was induced to disregard the Brahminical culture due to a slight provocation of hunger and thirst. Maharaj Parikshit lamented the accidental incident, and he desired that all his kingdom, strength, and accumulation of wealth would be burned up for not being engaged in Brahminical culture, etc. Where wealth and strength are not engaged in the advancement of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection, the state and home are surely doomed by providence. If we want peace and prosperity in the world, we should take lessons from this verse. Every state and every home must endeavor to advance the cause of Brahminical culture for self-purification, God consciousness for self-realization, and cow protection for getting sufficient milk and the best food to continue a perfect civilization. Adyaiva rajam balamrita kosham prakopita brahma kula nalome tahatva bhajasya punarname bhut papiyasi dir dvijadeva gopya. I am uncivilized and sinful due to my neglect of Brahminical culture, God consciousness, and cow protection. Therefore, I wish that my kingdom, strength, and riches burn up immediately by the fire of the Brahmana's wrath, so that in the future I may not be guided by such inauspicious attitudes. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Very interesting and exciting, thrilling even, conclusion to the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. In the first canto, we've met these amazing personalities, and the first canto is, in one sense, an introduction to the whole work. So we're familiarized with the personality of Krishna himself, Narada Muni, Vyasadeva, Kunti, Bhishma Dev, the Pandavas, and Yudhishthir, and a considerable amount of time is spent on Parikshit himself as an important person. Important, of course, because he's the reason we have Srimad Bhagavatam at all, but important in so many ways for his behavior, his example. As Prabhupada would often say, his birth is amazing, his life is amazing, and his death is also amazing. So we're hearing about Parikshit's incredible statement and behavior in this situation. Now, sometimes devotees, we discuss like this about Parikshit Maharaj. Oh, did he actually fall in Maya and curse and disrespect the king? Was he just play acting? Did Krishna personally put him in Maya and force him to do it? Or we ask about Arjuna. Was Arjuna an illusion on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? Was he play acting? Did Krishna put him into illusion? So these are things worth discussing and questions worth asking, but we should also recognize that we can't actually fully answer them 100%, because there's so many different points of view and so many different opinions. Let's look at an example of Arjuna, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita. Let's look at text 435 in the purport. Prabhupada says, let's see, where did the bodily difference of the living entity is Maya, or not actual fact. We are all meant to satisfy Krishna by Maya alone. Krishna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. So this sounds like Prabhupada is saying that Arjuna was in Maya. Or here's the verse and purport of the second chapter, text 3. Let's see. This is a very famous verse where Krishna says to Arjuna, Klaibhyamasma gamar parta. How is this impotency, this weakness come upon you? You're acting like, Klaibhya means impotent. Klaibhya comes from the word for eunuch. So Krishna is speaking very strongly that Arjuna, you're in illusion. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, Krishna did not want Arjuna to become an unworthy son of a Kshatriya. Arjuna was the most intimate friend of Krishna, and Krishna was directly guiding him on the chariot. But in spite of all these credits, if Arjuna abandoned the battle, he would be committing an infamous act. So again, it seems like Prabhupada is putting blame on Arjuna that he's actually an illusion, that he's actually behaving wrongly. But then on the other hand, on the other side, there are other references. In purport of chapter 1, text 21 and 22, Prabhupada says, as a pure devotee of the Lord, Arjuna had no desire to fight with his cousins and brothers, but he was forced to come onto the battlefield by the obstinacy of Duryodhana, who is never agreeable to any peaceful negotiation. So here, Prabhupada is saying that he didn't want to fight, not because he was an illusion, but because he was a pure devotee. And naturally, why would he want to fight for some material kingdom? And then final example is, let's see, in text 28 of the first chapter, Prabhupada says, any man who has genuine devotion to the Lord has all the good qualities which are found in godly persons or in the demigods. As such, Arjuna, just after seeing his kinsmen, friends, and relatives on the battlefield, was at once overwhelmed by compassion for them who had so decided to fight among themselves. As far as his soldiers was concerned, he was sympathetic from the beginning, but he felt compassion even for the soldiers of the opposite party. foreseeing their imminent death. So in this way, there are these equivocal statements. Is Arjuna a pure devotee behaving properly? Is he in Maya behaving improperly? And we may ask, well, which is it? Well, that's very difficult to say, actually impossible to say, because, and again, we'll apply the same principle to Parikshit Maharaj. Prabhupada is saying in today's verse, in today's purport, that even a strong king like Parikshit was induced to disregard Brahminical culture due to a slight provocation of hunger and thirst, and saying that also that he was influenced by the age of Kali. And other places he described that there was actually no offense, or that it was the arrangement of the Lord to put him in that situation. So all of these things are there. So how do we understand it? Can a pure devotee sometimes be overwhelmed by hunger and thirst? Is it all arranged by Krishna? This is beyond our ability to say with absolute certainty. Going back to the teachings of Bhishma Dev, he says, Nahyasya karhichid rajan, human veda viditsitan, yadvijigyasaya yukta, muyante kavayopihi. That even the biggest learned scholars and devotees are inquiring, what is the plan of Krishna? But even they cannot say with certainty what the plan of Krishna is. Or going back to the prayers of Queen Kunti, she's, what's that? Atyanta vidambanam. That the pastimes and the activities and the plan of Krishna are atyanta vidambanam. Atyanta, anta means end, and atyanta means endless or endlessly, and vidambana means bewildering, or even more than bewildering, even like vexing or frustrating. So you try to understand Krishna's pastimes, but they're atyanta vidambanam. They're endlessly complicated and endlessly bewildering to us with our little pea-sized brain trying to understand Krishna's purpose, Krishna's plan. And what to speak of Krishna's plan, even understanding the mind of a pure devotee and the activities and symptoms of a pure devotee is not possible. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was preaching to Srila Sanatana Goswami, teaching him about love of Godhead, and after his very long, intricate discussion about Bhava Bhakti, then he said, now I'm going to tell you about Prema Bhakti. And he immediately speaks this verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Yahanchite Krishna Prema Karye Uday Tanra Vakya Kriya Mudra Vigyeha Nabujai. That someone whose mind is on the platform of Krishna Prema, of pure love for Krishna, you cannot understand their Tanya Vakya Kriya Mudra. Vakya means their words. You cannot understand them, their inner heart, from their words, Kriya from their activities, or Mudra from their symptoms or signs. So you can't understand the heart of a pure devotee. What was Krishna's state of mind at the battlefield of Kurukshetra? We have information and opinions from Prabhupada and the Acharyas on both sides. And same thing with Parikshit Maharaj. So determining this is difficult and tricky. And again, it's a topic worthy of discussion and worthy of, poring over and discussing from Shastra and logic and so many things. But in another sense, on the other hand, this question doesn't really matter. What was their state of mind? What's important, just like Prabhupada said, if we want to understand Bhagavad Gita, we want to understand it in the way that Arjuna understood it. Or if we want to understand Parikshit Maharaj's position, we should understand it in the way that Parikshit Maharaj did. So whatever we may think he was in Maya or he wasn't in Maya, it was Krishna's arrangement or it was this or that. But how did Arjuna take it? Arjuna took it that I am in Maya. That's how he personally took it. After all of these verses, these segments from Bhagavad Gita that I referenced, what did Arjuna say? Karpanya dosho pato svabhava krichami tandharma samudacheta. Yatreya cha nischitam bruhitan me shishyasteham sadimam pram prapanam. He said, Karpanya dosho pato swabhava. Karpanya means kripa. I'm crippled. Kripa means a miser. So my intelligence is so limited and miserly. Dosha pahato. Dosha means I'm covered by faults. And he says, Karpanya dosho pahato swabhavam. What does swabhava mean? Swa means my own, and bhava means nature. So he's saying it's my nature. I am an illusion. I am covered by faults. I'm the miserly minded one. So whatever philosophically position he may be in, Arjuna is taking it that this is happening. I'm an illusion. He's taking responsibility, and therefore I have to surrender to Krishna. Is he play acting? Is it as Krishna's arrangement? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And no one can say for sure, but how is Arjuna taking it? So that's how we understand it, and that's how we apply it to our life. And same thing with Parikshit Maharaj. This incident happened, this unfortunate incident with Shamak Rishi, and Parikshit is a pure devotee of such caliber we can't even imagine, we can't even calculate what a great pure devotee is. But somehow or other this happened. But how is Parikshit taking it? He's taking responsibility that I made a bad mistake. So this is how this is one aspect of how we understand these things, that we understand them in the way that the devotees that it's happening to understand it, and we take it seriously in that way. And there is the fact that these are pure devotees and Krishna is making all these arrangements for so many things to happen. But we shouldn't think that it's just like, empty play acting on a stage. These are real deep felt things happening, and these devotees are experiencing like that. So Parikshit Maharaj is also doing that. And he's lamenting so seriously that, it's my fault. Now, I found this really interesting. This was also discussed a little bit yesterday in the nice class yesterday. But Parikshit Maharaj is actually cursing himself. The timeline is a little hard to discern from the Bhagavatam, which doesn't give every single second of the history. But it looks like this is before Parikshit Maharaj even was cursed by Shringi, or even got notice of the curse from Shringi. Before he even knew about that or heard about that, he's taking responsibility and cursing himself. Let my kingdom, my wealth, all of these things, I'm cursing myself, let them be taken away, let them be burned. He's taking it so seriously and taking such responsibility for his actions that he's cursing himself before Shringi even curses him or he hears about Shringi's curse. So how serious is Maharaj Parikshit taking this? That he's not waiting on the sage's curse. Like sometimes if we do something wrong, or we make some mistake, or even break some law, we might think, oh, well, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to do anything. Let's see if the authorities, catch me at it, or if they get caught, or if let's see if there's any punishment coming. I'll wait and see. And then if I get caught, then I'll deal with it. This is so often the case with people, with everyone. I do it. Maybe some of us do that sometimes, and we do something wrong, and we think, oh, let's wait and see if I get caught. But Parikshit Maharaj didn't wait. He immediately realized his mistake, and he didn't wait and say, oh, I'll see if a curse comes, and then I'll deal with that. No, he took responsibility right on the spot and cursed himself. So this is a very important example, how to take responsibility for our mistakes, how to realize our mistakes and take full responsibility for them and rectify them, not wait for punishment or think that we can get out of it. People think, Prabhupada has said before so many times, that people do some sin in secret, and they think, I did it in secret, so no problem. But Prabhupada says people don't realize Super Soul is there seeing the Dikpal, all of the directions are seeing, the sun and the moon are witnesses, all the elements and all the demigods are witnesses to your action. So a devotee knows that, so therefore he's not waiting, he's not hiding, he's not trying to escape the reaction. He's embracing the reaction because he knows it's proper, because he's taking responsibility for his actions. And the bad mentality, the crooked mentality, is to try to escape blame, or try to escape responsibility, or to deny responsibility. Prabhupada would, a couple of times, he would tell the story of a man and a friend who the man gave his friend some ganja to smoke. So his friend was holding the ganja in his hand smoking, and the friend would take his friend's hand with the ganja in it and take his hand and hold it up and smoke it. And when the police would come, he'd say, "No, it's not my hand, it's in his hand." So this is how people try to escape responsibility, put the blame on someone else. It's not and we always do that. When there's something wrong, our first perverted or conditioned instinct is, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. This is a scene. Politicians are the worst at this. And I'll give a couple of examples. There was one politician, one senator, who called another senator a very foul name. I won't use the words because it's terrible. He's, using the F word and using the B word against a female member of Congress and calling her that. And when he got in trouble for that, and we know these things, these terrible things happen, and then someone is forced to make an apology. So what his apology was, "Oh, I'm sorry if you misconstrued my words." There was nothing misconstrued. He called her an obscene name, but his so-called apology is a non-apology. That, "Oh, I'm sorry, you misconstrued my words." Or another example, there was one golfer named Fuzzy Zeller who made some racist comments about Tiger Woods. And when he got caught at it and was forced to apologize, he said, "Oh, same thing. Oh, I'm very sorry if you misconstrued my words." Or we hear this all the time in apology. "Oh, I'm sorry if you were offended. I'm sorry if you took it the wrong way." Instead of a real apology means, "I'm sorry for what I did." So this is what Parikshit Maharaj is doing. He's not shifting the blame. He's not hiding from the blame or hiding from his responsibility. He's embracing it, rather, because he knows that that's how you purify. If you make a mistake, the way to get purified of that mistake is not by hiding from it or denying it, but by taking responsibility and willingly taking the reaction for it. I'll give another historical example of how to properly take responsibility, because I'm a little bit of a history buff. Today is the anniversary of D-Day. Those who don't know American D-Day, D-Day is when the American troops made a big landing on the shores in France, I guess it was, and opened up a new front in World War II against Hitler's army. And before, there was a whole big plan made, and some parts of the plan went right and some parts of the plan went wrong. But ultimately it was successful. But before it happened, General Eisenhower, who was the general in charge of the D-Day invasion, he actually wrote a letter in case it didn't go well, because there was no guarantee that the D-Day invasion was going to be successful. So this is the letter he wrote in the event that D-Day was unsuccessful. This was going to be like his public letter. He wrote, "Our landings in the Cherbourg-Havre area have failed to gain a satisfactory foothold, and I have withdrawn the troops. My decision to attack at this time and place was based upon the best information available. The troops, the air, and the Navy did all that bravery and devotion to duty could do. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." So this is, whatever he may be, I'm not a fan of Eisenhower or war in general or any of these things, but this is honorable that he's in charge and he's saying, this is the theoretical letter, if things had gone wrong, he's saying the blame is mine. So this is honorable. Just like being truthful, being clean, being honorable, all of these good qualities, they're appreciated by the materialists and the devotees. So if a materialist manifests this, how much more does a devotee accept responsibility for his actions? Eisenhower was able to do it for this one military activity, but a devotee takes responsibility for all of his activities across lifetimes, and not only bodily activities, but the situation of his very soul. He's taking responsibility for his mistakes in that way. So this is an important thing that I think we could learn from this. An honorable person will admit that fault and embrace that fault and learn from that fault and take what's due to him for that mistake. And a dishonorable person will deny it or blame others. Another example is the conflict between Maharaja Ambarish and Durvasa Muni. Ambarish Maharaj did no fault. He drank a little drop of water to break his fast, which in a technical sense is not breaking fast, but in another technical sense, it is breaking fast because you're putting something in your mouth. And Ambarish Maharaj should not have been angry, but he got so angry blaming Ambarish. But because he did that, because he was putting the blame on someone else, therefore he was severely punished and chased all over the universe by the Sudarshan Chakra. And he could not be freed from that punishment until he submitted again at the feet of the person whom he had offended. Even Vishnu himself would not release him. But Ambarish Maharaj, he took it that, oh, it actually is my fault. I've committed a great offense against the sage. That's how Ambarish Maharaj was thinking. And what to speak of the devotees, even Vishnu himself. When all of the sages were speculating, who's the greatest of all of the devatas? And some were saying it was Vishnu, and some were saying it was Lord Shiva, and some were saying it was Lord Brahma. So they said, well, the greatest person is the one who is most tolerant and most forgiving. So they sent Bhrigu Muni to test them all. And it's early enough, I'll tell the whole story. So Bhrigu Muni first went to Lord Brahma, who is his father. And I'm trying to remember, he approached Lord Brahma and just started speaking to him. So he didn't offer obeisances first to Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma got angry. Oh, I'm your father, I'm your superior. You come before me and you didn't bow down? What is this? So he understood that, oh, Lord Brahma, because he's getting angry and losing his cool like this, he's not the topmost. Then he went to his brother, Lord Shiva, and I think he made some comments about, some comments about his wife sitting on his lap. And Lord Shiva became a little angry. Oh, you're coming, you're my brother, but you're coming, you're criticizing, you're not speaking nicely. So it first was an offense with his body against Lord Brahma by not bowing down. Then an offense with his words against Lord Shiva by not speaking properly. Then he went to Lord Vishnu and he committed the most serious offense of all, the bodily offense of actually attacking Lord Vishnu. And he walked up to Lord Vishnu and kicked him on the chest with his foot. And Lord Vishnu grabbed the foot of the sage and said, oh, my dear sage, I'm so sorry. My chest is so hard as a thunderbolt. And I'm so worried that you're a great Brahmana and your lotus feet might have been hurt by striking against my thunderbolt-like chest, and was massaging his feet. So Bhrigu then understood that Lord Vishnu was the topmost. And Vishnu and Krishna now also have this Bhrigu Pat, this mark of Bhrigu Muni on the chest. So anyway, this tolerance, this willing to accept fault, willingness to accept responsibility, what an important quality. What a beautiful quality this is. And this quality, this ability to accept fault, to accept responsibility for your behavior is based on two other extremely important, vital Vaishnava qualities: truthfulness and humility. Truthfulness means that if I did something wrong, then I did something wrong, and I'm going to say so, and I'm going to admit it, and I'm not going to hide it, like Parikshit Maharaj did. I did this thing, I admit it. Let the curse come on me, I don't mind. So that's truthfulness, and also humility. If you're not humble, if you think you're above everyone else, then how will you, then of course, everything that happens to you, you're going to blame on your so-called underlings, on those under you. But if you're humble, you'll understand, yes, this is my fault. This is my responsibility that this is happening to me. Truthfulness we heard about in this whole the preceding chapters about the dealings with Maharaj Parikshit and with Dharma the bull and Bhumi the earth and the personality of Kali Yuga. That was the point, that the Dharma the bull was tottering on only one leg, which was truthfulness, the last leg of religion in Kali Yuga. So how important is truthfulness as the ornament, as the quality of a Brahmana or of a devotee, is truthfulness. Just like Prabhupada said one time, he said, just like a sannyasi, if a sannyasi has illicit connection with women, he loses all quality and all respect of being a sannyasi. And if a brahmana is not truthful, he loses all quality and all respect of being a brahmana. So what an essential quality it is. And then humility for a devotee. How essential is the quality of humility? I was relatively recently, I was reading in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, when the hero of Brihad Bhagavatamrita returned back to Godhead, and he entered the precincts of Vrindavan, and he was walking through the forest of Vrindavan and coming closer to the town of Vrindavan, and he saw the town of Vrindavan, and the whole time he was in anxiety. Why was he in anxiety? Because he was feeling so humble. I'm not qualified. I'm not proper to be here. I'm not qualified to be here. How did I come here? I shouldn't be here. He was feeling this extreme anxiety out of humility, dainya. This humility of his, considering his position as not very high and not very qualified. And in his own commentary on that book, on Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Srila Sanatana Goswami says that this humility is the most important quality of a devotee, the most important quality. So when you're humble and when you're truthful, then you can understand that, yes, it's me, I'm the one who screwed up. It's not someone else's fault. It's not Krishna's fault. It's not my underling's fault. It's not my enemy's fault. I did it. It's my responsibility. I have to truthfully admit that and humbly accept that there is a reaction due to me, and I'm willing to accept that. This is how we advance in devotional service. And of course, the famous verse about this. Who wants to say what verse I'm going to quote now? Any guesses, any suggestions?
Pranadapi sunichena.
That's an excellent verse, but specific. But I had another one in mind. Someone else? No? Okay, I'll say this is from Lord Brahma's prayers in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto. He says, Tatenu kampam susimik bunjana evatma kritam vipakam, ridvad vapur bir vididan namaste, jiveta yo mukti pade sadayabak. Tatenu kampam, that one who has accepted the mercy of the Lord, bunjana evatma kritam vipakam, he accepts that all of his reactions are actually due to his own behavior. They're his own fault. The devotee knows whatever happens to me is sent by Krishna, but it's my own fault due to my own actions. And someone who has that understanding that it's my fault, it's my responsibility, and at the same time, Ridvad vapur bir vididan namaste. Namaste means offering obeisances, offering respect. Such a person who goes on offering respect to Krishna, rid, within his heart. That means in his heart he remains a devotee. Rid vag. Vak means with his words. That means he goes on chanting Hare Krishna. He goes on glorifying Krishna and speaking about Krishna and preaching about Krishna. And vapu. Vapu means his body, his bodily activities. And with his bodily activities, he goes on worshiping Krishna, serving Krishna, accepting all the reactions that come to him as his own responsibility. That person is qualified for receiving Krishna's mercy and going back to Godhead. Not the person who says, oh, it's not my fault, it's someone else's fault. And what does he say? Jivetyo mukti pade sadayapak. Such a person is qualified for attaining Krishna, who is Mukti Pad, the Lord who gives liberation. Just like Dayabak. Dayabak means receiving the inheritance of the Father. To receive the inheritance of the Father, what does the Son have to do? He simply has to be the Son. He simply has to remain alive, and he'll receive the inheritance of the Father. So we accept responsibility and remain alive in devotional service, bowing down to Krishna with our heart, with our mind, our words, and taking full responsibility for our actions and reactions. Then we're qualified. And we could see right after this verse, Tatenu Kampam, Lord Brahma's prayers. This whole story of Lord Brahma is so instructive in this. But right after that verse, Lord Brahma says in text 9, he says, my Lord, just see my uncivilized impudence. To test your power, I tried to extend my illusory potency to cover you, the unlimited and primeval supersoul, who bewilder even the masters of illusion. What am I compared to you? I am just like a small spark in the presence of a great fire. Next text. Therefore, O infallible Lord, kindly excuse my offenses. I have taken birth in the mode of passion, and am therefore simply foolish, presuming myself a controller independent of your lordship. My eyes are blinded by the darkness of ignorance, which causes me to think of myself as the unborn creator of the universe. But please consider that I am your servant and therefore worthy of your compassion. If we want Krishna's compassion, this is the prerequisite as exemplified by Lord Brahma. First, admitting our fault. Just see my uncivilized impudence. I'm in the mode of passion. I'm simply foolish. I presumed myself powerful. This is the admission of Lord Brahma. Therefore, because of that, he was actually qualified to ask for and receive forgiveness and mercy from Krishna. So if we want Krishna's mercy so that we don't have to take responsibility for our mistakes or our actions, that's not really the understanding of Krishna's mercy. Krishna's mercy comes when we take responsibility for all of those things. Another brilliant example is Lord Indra. Lord Indra was so offensive that he tried to murder Krishna's dearmost devotees. What could possibly be a worse offense than that? That he tried to wholesale murder all of the residents of Vrindavan. But what did Indra say? Finally, after the whole Govardhan Puja Leela, he came before Krishna and fell down before him. He said, I am actually, I don't have the exact prayers, but he prayed in the same way that I'm so fallen. I thought myself a big, powerful person. I thought myself in charge. And therefore I made these terrible mistakes, these offenses. And what did Lord Indra do? Lord Indra, when Lord Indra came down to offer prayers to Krishna, he came with the Surabhi cow. Of course, that's important. Prabhupada said that cows are such an important part of Brahminical culture. So naturally, Lord Indra came with a cow. So Krishna would naturally become a little sympathetic. But what did they do? They performed the Abhishek of Krishna. But what was this Abhishek? This Abhishek was actually a royal Abhishek. They were installing Krishna as the new Indra. And that's when Krishna got the name Govinda. Govinda means Gava Indra. He's the Indra of the cows. So Indra was actually forfeiting his position as Indra, the king of heaven, and installing Krishna. He said, I'm not Indra, you're Indra. You're the actual Indra. But then he was forgiven, and Krishna said, that's okay, you go back to the heavenly planets and take your position again. But he was forgiven because he was able to take this responsibility, even the responsibility up to losing his respected position as Indra. Another brilliant example of this is Jagai and Madai. Jagai and Madai came from the most respectable Brahmana families. And people automatically at that time respect those who were in Brahmana families, but they were so sinful and so degraded that you can't imagine. They were the most sinful and most degraded. But we all know the story of how they attacked Lord Nityananda and then got the mercy of Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after being threatened with destruction by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But they were rectified, and how were they rectified? They fell down at feet and admitted, we are so sinful and we are so fallen, and fell down like that. And when they were rectified as devotees, did they say, oh, we're fully rectified as devotees now. Now when we're going to go back to being big brahmanas and respected in the society. Did they do that? No. They said, we are so fallen. The only position for us is to clean the bathing ghats at the Ganga. We're going to clean and maintain nicely the bathing ghats so that the bathing ghats are very nice and clean and pure and well maintained for when the devotees come, they can bathe nicely in Mother Ganga. They didn't say, oh, we're big brahmanas, we were delivered by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, now we're big leaders of society again. They took the lowest position. Cleaning the bathing ghats means basically Sudra position. This is Sudra position. Cleaning the public facilities is Sudra position, but they took that. So they took responsibility for actions, and because of that, Jagai and Madai are glorified even now, 500 years later. Jagai and Madai are glorified and even worshipped for their greatness because they took responsibility. They took a reduced position. One last example was his name Krishna Das, who was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's servant when he was touring. And in the course of his touring, this Krishna Das got bewildered and was allured by the beautiful women of the Badahari tribe. And so he became fallen. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, you can't be my servant anymore. He rejected him as servant, and he was still accepted. He was rectified. Lord Chaitanya saved him, and he was rectified as a devotee. But did he say, oh, I'm a big gun. I was the personal servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so I'm a big gun? No, he became actually like a peon. He became, he was looking for some service. So the devotee said, okay, you take this letter and you carry it to Mother Sachi in Navadvip. So he took a very lowly position. So this is how we accept responsibility. We take responsibility for our actions. And this is how we get Krishna's mercy. If we want Krishna's mercy, we need this humility and this honesty that I made a mistake. I'm going to get a reaction for it, but I'm going to continue in my devotional service. And not only get a reaction for it, waiting for the reaction, but I willingly accept that reaction. And I'm not just passively accepting it, but I am going to seek out means to rectify my mistake. I'll tell one last little story, Prabhupada's story. Satsarup Maharaj was Prabhupada's servant at one time and secretary. So one time, and part of that duty was Prabhupada would dictate letters, and the servant secretary would type out the letters and mail them out. So there was one letter Prabhupada dictated, and in that letter, it was a letter to, I don't remember to whom the letter was, but in the letter, Prabhupada said, in this letter, I'm enclosing such and such document related to what we're discussing. So later in the day, Prabhupada asked Satsuru Maharaj, so did you send that letter? And he said, yes. And he said, did you enclose the document in that letter that I said was enclosed in it? And he said, oh, I couldn't find it, Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada got very angry at him. He said, I said in the letter that this document was enclosed. If you didn't enclose it, then first of all, it'll make me look bad because I said that the document was there, but it wasn't. And it will interfere with my communication with my business with this person if he doesn't have the letter. And Prabhupada was over and over criticizing him. You did this wrongly. And Satsuru Maharaj was so devastated. He was apologizing. He was crying before Srila Prabhupada. And then finally Prabhupada said, so what are you going to do about it? And Satsuru Maharaj said, recounting the incident, he said, because he was crying, he said, Prabhupada was not particularly impressed by my wet display of emotions. But then he asked, so what are you going to do about it? So Satsuru Maharaj said he had to sort of like, gather himself together and think about it clearly and think of a practical solution. And he said, well, I couldn't find the document, so I'll send another letter to this person explaining that I couldn't find the document, and I'll forward it to him as soon as I find it, explaining it that way. And Prabhupada said, yes, so do it. And the incident was over. And 5 minutes later, Prabhupada was no longer angry. He was back. So if we want Krishna's mercy, then if we have this real truthfulness, if we have this genuine humility, then we could get Krishna's mercy, and not by show bottle humility. I learned actually this term show bottle means, like in old pharmacies. I could vaguely remember, like from my childhood, that the pharmacy would have bottles in the window full, like medicine bottles, but full of just like water with a couple of drops of dye in it. So there would be a bottle of red liquid, a bottle of blue liquid, a bottle of green liquid, to look like medicine, advertising medicine. So this is show bottle, that there's not actually medicine in it, but it's for show. So we don't want this show bottle humility, that we're making a show that, oh, we sign our letters, you write a letter and at the end you sign your humble servant. We all do this, and this is proper to do, or please accept my humble obeisances. But when we actually have that humility in our heart, that we're willing to accept that I'm genuinely fault, like we say, oh, I'm your humble servant, but then if someone disrespects me, then we become angry. So when we have that deep humility and that deep honesty, then we could take responsibility for our mistakes. We can take responsibility for our sadhana, for our practice, for our advancement in devotional service. And as Krishna says, Yeyatamam prapadyante tam sadaiva bhajamyaham, that he's reciprocating with how we approach Krishna. What is this but a statement of the importance of our responsibility? That as we approach Krishna, Krishna will reciprocate. That means it's our responsibility. The good of our strict practice of sadhana is our responsibility, and we deserve the reward, as Krishna says, and our mistakes and our fall downs and all the millions of cases where we blow it are also our responsibility, and equally we have to accept that. Then mukti padesa dayabak. If we do that and continue with all the sincerity at our command in our devotional service, then we're qualified recipients of Krishna's mercy. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now. Thank you.
Anybody has questions, please just unmute yourself, or you can raise your hand even.
Nothing? Going once, Going twice. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. I hope everyone has a wonderful day in Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha vipasannubheva
Yogiyocha patitanam pavanebhyo.
Vaishnavebhyo namaha. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.